It's time for all the news you need and more. Brookland is Live starts right now.
Good day, good to be with you. We start right now with the live shot at the White House. It is 2:02 here in Brooklyn, 3:02 on the East Coast, and 12:02 on the West Coast. I'm Jackson Mitchell. It's Thursday, June 4th. It is good to be with you. We got a lot to get to. We want to note here as we start, we are standing by because we do expect President Trump to speak from the White House, expected to make an announcement on coal that is coming up at any moment now. We are ready for it and we'll bring it to you live. Stick with us for that announcement again at any moment now. We are also watching live. This is an interesting one. After the reflecting pool construction that essentially turned it, well, red, white, and blue, the basin of it to an American flag, it is now being refilled after that construction. So we are monitoring that feed as you again see the water starting to pill out from the underneath there at the basin. And I'm ready to see what the construction does look like. I know it had gained a lot of controversy because it did cost it was expected to cost around $1.5 to $2 million for the construction, but I'm still ready to see what it might look like once it is filled up. Of course, I know we also had followed a lawsuit about the case as well. Okay, so again, we are monitoring that feed. We are going to start you off, though, with a live feed. This is the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Fentanyl. Right now, they are holding a hearing on China's role in this fentanyl crisis that America is currently in. Let's take a listen here. Again, I want to note we are still standing by for President Trump for his remarks. As soon as they begin, we will take you there live. In the meantime, though, we are going to listen in to this hearing. Before we turn the audio up here, we're also monitoring the Senate, who right now is voting on the ICE and CBP funding bill. We'll update you on that when we get an update that is coming up here as well.
So we need to be realistic about our expectations. Yet with that, a single 55-gallon drum of chemical precursors can make perhaps millions of doses of illegal fentanyl that can kill Americans. And additionally, while we're concerned about fentanyl and fentanyl precursors now, we don't know what's coming next. And I'll just add where I started. The proof is in the pudding. We need to see enforcement on these actions if we're to believe that China is taking steps that we expect them to take.
Thank you very much. Ranking Member Bera.
Thank you. So, Mr. Lucky, you talked about where the majority of the chemical industry in the world exists, and we know a vast majority of the precursor chemicals for fentanyl are coming out of China. A lot of these chemicals have dual use as well. So I guess I would ask each of the it's not my impression that there was an initial intent as they were building this industry to say, okay, these precursors are going to go into fentanyl, and fentanyl's going to intentionally cost American a number of lives. Criminals are very creative. They realize the profit margin in this was great. Because intent matters, but now that we know the impact of what these chemicals do, we do have to compel them to say, maybe that wasn't your intent, but this is what's happening. These chemicals are originating within China, and we have to do everything we can to stop or at least disrupt the flow of those chemicals to the extent possible. I do worry about legitimate companies, legitimate American companies or European companies buying these dual-use chemicals and then those chemicals getting diverted. So I'd be curious about strategies on, we've got to go to the source and we've got to make sure they do the enforcement and hold them accountable for doing those enforcements, especially if they're aware of quote-unquote legitimate chemical companies that are doing illegitimate actions. We've got to go after those folks. How do we track those? And we haven't talked a lot about the pill presses as well. Is that another strategy of who's creating these pill presses? who's buying these pill presses? Is there, I think the chairwoman alluded to, who's the end purchaser? Are they a legitimate purchaser? How do we make sure? To me, those are also strategies I think we ought to think about. And then Ms. Liu, you touched on just going after China in and of itself may not solve this, because you're starting to see industry prop up in India and elsewhere that, so it's got to be a whole, government. I guess I'd ask any of you to, are we thinking about that correctly?
Yeah, Ranking Member Barra, thank you very much for the question. I completely agree with your assessment. On the one hand, there is no coherent grand strategy inside China saying that they are going to develop the world's largest chemical industry and pharmaceutical industry in order to poison American minds. However, their lack of acknowledgement, their aloofness to not just their industrial policies' impact on American industries, but also on the illicit fentanyl supply chain. That matters a lot. So this is why Congress should pressure China in terms of not just giving us promises, but also act. Now, the problem becomes how to act. If China can impose export controls and demand and user license verification on rare earth material, they can probably do that as well. Now, the problem of going down that route is that it's probably going to trigger a lot of negative consequences across the entire pharmaceutical supply chain, precisely for the reason you mentioned, because a lot of these chemical ingredients, they are not just APIs, they are input to other materials. So from that point of view, I think we should be very careful in terms of what are the chemical ingredient that is most critical and very unlikely, very hard to be substituted to make synthetic fentanyl.
And just to follow up on that, I assume we can identify 2 or 3 very critical elements, as opposed to targeting 40 elements, 2 or 3 that are critical to the chemical nature of fentanyl, and target those.
Well, I think that the answer to that today is yes, but that's going to be a moving target, and that's why I think trying to build up the infrastructure to be able to monitor the flow of the material, but also to monitor the interaction with finances and other tools are going to be vital, because there will be a fentanyl 2.0, so to speak. And so it's vital that we solve some of these issues in this current stage, because there will be more. But ultimately, I think we have to begin at the beginning. We have an overdependence. There is a monstrously large manufacturing supply chain in one country. That by itself creates a number of challenges. You don't have to be for or against China, China good or bad. It's a bad idea no matter what. I still, though, think that beginning to address the problems does begin there, because they are so large. Yes, there will be ancillary markets that pop up elsewhere, but if you demonstrate seriousness and effect with China as it is now, that will shape the behavior of the governments in the other jurisdictions about working with us and enforcing in the early stages before it gets too big.
May I ask a slight follow-up question? One of the things I worry about, and Mr. H., you alluded to it, in the methamphetamine space, we went after Sudafed, right, and clamped down on Sudafed. The chemical nature of meth has changed dramatically in terms of how and it's become more toxic in terms of neurocircuitry and everything else. And I do worry about that component of it. And Mr. Luckey, you've alluded to some of that as well, that, if we go after the fentanyl today, you will then get fentanyl 2.0 or 3.0, and I think we're seeing some of that in our own streets. I've read about in Philadelphia a much more addictive and destructive form of fentanyl starting to pop up.
Thank you, Ranking Member Barra. Interestingly enough, throughout Southeast Asia, China is the leading producer of precursors for methamphetamines as well. So the chemical industry in China is obviously not just producing precursors for synthetic opioids, but precursors for other illegal drugs. And while we need to press China on enforcing the regulations and laws that it has in place, We also need to be working with international bodies such as the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime and the International Narcotics Control Board to assist them in getting ahead of the next crisis that we might be facing. Because, for example, the chemical industry in India, while not nearly as large as that in China, is even less regulated than that in China. So what comes next could be, in fact, worse than what we're seeing now.
Thank you.
Great. Let me recognize Representative Moylan for your additional questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just reviewing this report here. The Chinese, according to China Committee report, the Chinese government directly subsidized the export of at least 17 illegal narcotics that have no legal use. The PRC government even owns multiple fentanyl exporters. And this, of course, is not the behavior of...
Alrighty here, I hate to interrupt because they are having such a valuable conversation here in this House subcommittee, such a valuable investigation, the role that China may have played in what is the fentanyl crisis the U.S. is going through right now. Okay, we do want to start you off right now with a live look at the White House. We do want to get you to some of those big stories that are making headlines right now. We are going to start with Todd Blanche, now said to be nominated by President Trump to become the official attorney general. Of course, that means he has to go through hearings in the Senate. That's still to come, of course. And then after that, he would have to be voted by the Senate to be confirmed, which at this point in time, there is no, obvious person that would vote no in this case. So we believe that if he were to go for nomination, he would move forward at this point in time, at least. And we are also learning John Bolton may have reached a deal in a plea agreement. This is also hot off the press, fresh today, that we are learning about, as he is expected to plead guilty in that classified documents case that he is facing. He is a former advisor to President Donald Trump during his first administration. He served as a national security advisor, and we're now learning that he has agreed to plead guilty to retaining classified information in a private diary that is coming from MS Now. We are also want to take you to this. This could come at literally any moment. We expect Trump to make some type of announcement to speak on coal from the Oval Office. We're waiting for it. When it comes, we will take you there live. So stick with us for that. Plus, and we noted at the top of the hour, the reflecting pool now being refilled. So we are awaiting for it to be filled and what it might look like, as Trump had announced construction earlier this year that they were painting an American flag on the basin of the pool ahead of America's 250th birthday. And the Senate, right now, we are monitoring this, voting on Customs and Border Patrol and ICE funding in the Secure America Act bill. We are waiting for the results of that, and we'll bring it to you live here. We're going to sneak in our first break of the hour. When we come back, more of those big stories making headlines. I'm Jackson Mitchell here in Brooklyn. We're back in just a moment. And welcome back here live in a Brooklyn News Live. Again, we are standing by because any moment Trump will make an announcement from the Oval Office. That is again coming at any moment. We are standing by for it. When it comes to us, we will bring it to you live. So that is the feed we are standing by for right now. Trump going to make an announcement on coal. I will note here, and this is kind of how sometimes we do things, the White House has already began their live stream. Does that mean anything? I'm not sure, but usually when the White House begins their live stream of an event, it's coming in the next few moments. That is at least how it works for some of the events, not all of them, but if it's a telltale sign that at any moment we're standing by for it, it could come to us at any moment, and we are awaiting for it to come to us. As soon as it does, we will take you there live. Want to take you back to that live feed we were listening into over on Capitol Hill a few moments ago. We're going to keep standing by for this event at the White House. As soon as we get it again, as I said earlier, we're going to bring it to you. But right now, the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Fentanyl, again, holding a hearing as they investigate China's influence on the fentanyl crisis in the United States. Let's listen in.
Scheduling illicit drugs and all precursors that are known to be used in the manufacture of those illicit drugs. And secondly, to the point of China's geostrategic interests, we need to provide incentives to make them want to comply and disincentives if they don't.
Thank you very much for those wonderful responses to all of our questions. I want to thank the members for participating, and I want to thank the witnesses for your valuable testimony. Thank you so much. The members of the subcommittee may have some additional questions for the witness, and we will ask you to respond to those in writing. Pursuant to committee rules, all members may have 5 days to submit statements, questions, and extraneous materials for the record, subject to the length limitation. So, without objection, the committee now stands adjourned. Thank you again for joining us.
Alrighty, well, we got the last few moments of it there. That House Subcommittee now adjourning as they were investigating fentanyl. Okay, back to the White House here as we stand by for that live feed. The second we get it, we're going to bring it to you live. So stick with us for that. That is coming up to you here in just a few moments. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to take you right now to a live feed we are getting in. If you will hold with me here as we kind of behind the scenes, we have to set up our live feeds before we're just able to bring it to you guys on air. But we have a little bit of breaking news we're just getting in, and we do want to bring it to you. So if you will stand by with us really quickly here, we're going to try to bring you guys this live shot that we have. This is... Give me just one more second, you guys. We're trying to get this set up for you guys because we do want to take you to, again, this live shot. Okay, I believe we might be able to take it to you guys now. This is some news we are just getting it. Again, we're standing by at the White House as well for President Trump. We're going to keep monitoring that feed. But we do have some breaking news in right now. The bomb squad has been called to I-290 in Chicago. This is live right now from WLS-TV, the ABC affiliate there. So courtesy to them for having cameras on the ground that we are able to tune into. We know that there was a stop here, and now we are seeing bomb squad has been called to the scene here. Working to get more details, but that is what we know. Again, bombs got called to I-290. It is an investigation ongoing right now. It is blocked lanes in both directions between 25th Avenue and Wolf Road. They say Chopper 7 flew above the scene as the SUV in a middle lane sat with its windows blown out. A bomb squad unit from the Cook County Sheriff's Office appeared to investigate this. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives has also responded to the scene. The incident started at around 10 a.m. Further details on what led up to the investigation were not immediately available. This is a report that we're reading right now. This is at Manheim to I-290. So Manheim Road over I-290 closed right now. Eastbound Interstate 88 to eastbound I-290 closed. As you are taking a look at what appears to be a camera that is fully zoomed in, all the way zoomed in, as close as they can get to this car. And then we have a chopper as well. So this is, again, news coming into us right now. Alrighty, we're going to go over to the White House because President Trump is beginning his remarks there. Let's turn the audio up and begin listening in.
And again, we have a picture of a gentleman in a cart. Proudly, this is the head of construction for the job. So you can see it's just finished. This is just minutes before. And there's a gentleman named Secretary Burgum from Interior, Doug, who's been doing an incredible job. So Doug, we have 22 waterfalls. Most of them haven't worked for over 50 years. As of this morning, they all work beautifully and they're clean. The graffiti's gone. The broken marble is fixed. Well, there's a way of fixing it. You use a thing called silicone and you fix them. And they look beautiful. All of the hate and everything is removed from them. Some of them done through stupidity, actually, but hate. But here's another picture. Now you can tell this is a proud American because he's got a flag. The bad protesters never have flags up. They somehow don't like the flag too much, but we do. So that's great. We put in today, as you know, about Save America, the Save America Act. I don't know, someday the Senate and the House will get it done, although I must tell you the House has approved it about 3 times already. Save America Act right here. We have, everybody can see that. And then we'll talk about clean, beautiful coal. You're not allowed to say coal within the Trump administration unless it's preceded by the words clean, beautiful. Complicates our life, but it's good, right, Chris, wherever you may be? It is clean and beautiful. I'll tell you, it's effective. So the Save America Act is all voters must show photo ID. So you go to vote and you show photo ID. Not complicated, right? You know, who could oppose it? They say it's an 80-20. It's not. It's about 99-1, and we'll never find the one person. Andy, congratulations, Andy, on a big victory.
Thank you for your help.
That's a great. I appreciate it, but you're very good at what you do, and I've been backing you right from the beginning for a long time, right?
Backing you too, sir.
For years, that's right. You have. Thank you. Congratulations. You won a big election. So you have all voters must show photo ID, identification. All voters must show a little thing called proof of citizenship. Would you say that's 99-1, Mr. Pennsylvania?
I would say that's maybe 100 to 0.
I would think so. They say
At least it should be.
No, but they say it's 80-20. It's not 80-20. It's 99. And we've never found the one person. There's another one. Then you have no mail-in ballots, but we want to be liberal, as they say. Or we'll say we want to be progressive. So it's no mail-in ballots. You see that's what's happening in California. They're rigging the election. Now, maybe we caught them, and maybe they won't be able to get away with it. They tried with me. They did it successfully the second time. The third time, we made it too big to rig. Too many votes. They couldn't do it. They can only go. They sort of gave up at about 9:07 when they got slaughtered with the votes that came in. But no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. So we're being very progressive. And we just don't want cheating in our elections. And you see it happening in California. Those numbers are coming down rapidly. They found a lot of mail-in ballots last night, shockingly. So we don't want that. Then we added best of. This is best of Trump. No men in women's sports. No transgender mutilization surgery for our children. I would say that's pretty close to 99-1 also. no men in women's sports, I would say that's pretty good. We had the quarterback, Jackson is the quarterback for the Giants. He's a big, strong guy. And I said, how do you think you do in women's sports, Jackson? He said, pretty good, sir. He didn't know I was joking. He was not worried, let me put it that way. He would have been the greatest athlete in the history of women's sports. You got to see the size of this guy. Like a male model, and he's going to be a great quarterback. So we talk about that. And so we just would like the Senate, Democrats, Republicans to pass it. Interestingly, Democrat people, not crooked politicians, because most of them are crooked, or they're sick, or they're Trump deranged. There is Trump derangement syndrome. But the people, it's 86, 87%. Democrats. I mean, Democrats are fun. I have a lot of Democrat friends, but I don't know, for some reason, when they go into politics, they get radical left crazy, and they're trying to destroy our country, but we're not going to let that happen. So today we're taking historic action to bring down the price of energy and the cost of living for all Americans with the power of clean, beautiful coal. If you look at China, if you look at so many of the successful countries, they're using coal. If you look at some of the real great failures countries, they're using wind. Just keeps blowing, and puts you right out of business. Very expensive, most expensive energy there is. So wind is not working very well, but they keep it going because people get subsidies by countries that are stupid. Doug, I would say we haven't been long on wind. Do you agree with that? He understands numbers very well. You know, Doug was very, very successful. Believe it or not, I used to think it was in energy, but he was successful in technology, and he sold his company to, I think, Microsoft, right? And for a lot of money, and he ran for politics. He ran for office, went to North Dakota, won immediately, won governor, who was very successful for 8 years. And I watched him during one of the performances of some very talented people. And I said, we're going to get him to work for us. And then I said I was going to put him in charge of energy. And he said, sir, there's a better man than me for that one. Not in all ways you feel that, but in one way. In energy, you do. And that was Chris, right? Yeah. Where's Chris?
Right here.
Right behind you. Well, he's a hard one to find. And Chris has done a fantastic job, and he's one of the reasons we're here today. We have had, we're right now double Saudi Arabia and Russia. If you double them up, that's what we produce, more than anybody else times 2. So think of that. As a result of the $700 million investment that I'm announcing today, we will protect 14 coal plants and 42 coal mines. It's a tremendous number. And build 2 new coal plants and 1 massive new export terminal, because we're exporting coal. Coal's a great business, really a big business, and it's real power. It's in terms of power, there's really nothing like it. You have so many different alternatives. They talk about some, but there's no real alternative. China, by the way, last year built 52 coal plants. They built about two windmills. You know, the only time they build a windmill is when they're trying to sell them to stupid people from the United States, the suckers. And by the way, and all over Europe, they sell the windmills, but they don't use them. I wonder why. They use coal plants and other things. These actions will support over 14,000 jobs and save the American people $50 billion in electricity costs. We're pleased to be joined by Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum. He has been great. I don't want to give him a big swollen ego, because then all of a sudden he'll leave me and I'll be stuck with Interior. I don't want to be stuck. But he's really done a great job. Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, is fantastic. And maybe our MVP. What do you think, Doug? It's close.
Yes, right here.
What do you think? MVP, Lee Zeldin. And the job he's done is great. We had the auto industry in yesterday. They don't want people to fix their car. I said, that's strange. I've never heard of that. They have a thing to, nobody's allowed to fix their car. They gave a man 7 years in jail, actually, because he fixed his own car. So I thought we'd do something about that. but we'll get it all straightened away. Can you believe it? They want a bill that prohibits people from fixing. So if you're mechanically inclined, I went to school with some guys, they were, in some cases, horrible students, but they could fix an engine blindfolded. They could take a car apart blindfolded, but they weren't too good at arithmetic and other things, but they were great. And so there's a move on to stop people from fixing their car. Didn't understand it, but we had a great meeting yesterday with the head of General Motors and Roger Penske, head of Ford. We had a great meeting, I think. Thanks as well to a friend of mine also for a long time, West Virginia Governor Patrick Morris. I won by 45 points, Patrick.
It's not enough.
I love those people. And Wyoming, I think maybe even slightly more than West Virginia. Right?
Just a little more.
We did pretty. I like this group of people. But Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon, respected guy, great governor, both of them really amazing. And Representatives Dan Muser, Riley Moore, Derek Van Orden, Juan Ciscomani, and Andy Barr. So you have a lot of representatives here that are fantastic. Today we're officially invoking the Defense Production Act to save 13 coal plants in West Virginia, Kentucky, North Carolina, Indiana, Tennessee, Arizona, Arkansas, Oklahoma, North Dakota, and Wisconsin. These were incredible plants, so productive, really producing a lot of the electricity, right? The electricity, and it's really the best at that. When they find something better, Chris, I think we'll be all set for it, right? But there are long ways from finding something better.
Coal's critical.
And so when you look at that, those states, West Virginia, Kentucky, North Carolina, Indiana, Tennessee, Arizona, Arkansas, Oklahoma, North Dakota, Wisconsin, what do they all have in common? Trump won them.
Wisconsin, but you're
I won every one of them by a lot, right?
Yeah.
I'm not even
Pennsylvania,
mentioning
too.
Pennsylvania, which we won also, right?
Yes.
But we won them all. We won all 50. We had an honest count, if you want to know the truth. Our action will allow these facilities to invest in upgrades that will extend their operational lives for decades into the future, reinforce the reliability of our electric grid, which is really the biggest beneficiary, and most importantly, keep electricity prices very low for the American people. This brings the total number of coal plants that we've saved during my administration, just like when we said we saved 25 water fountains. Think of this. These are fountains, beautiful fountains that were so horrible to look at with the graffiti. Over 40 years, many of them closed over 40 to 50 years. The big one, the reflective lake, some people call it a pond, some people it's like a lake. But the reflective lake was built in 1922. It never really worked from the beginning, from 1922. That's a long ways. So it's over 100 years old. And it never really worked because they had the wrong base. It was always leaking. They didn't have what we have today. So it's pretty amazing what's happened. And, I hate to say it won't leak, but it won't leak because we use a material that doesn't allow leaks. It's like a swimming pool doesn't leak. You use the right. This is called swimming pool on steroids. So it's great stuff. And today's actions, we're also supporting coal mines and coal miners in Wyoming and Pennsylvania, Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, North Dakota, and New Mexico. And they're all going back to work. It's interesting with the mines, that famous scene of Hillary when we went to West Virginia. Yeah. And she had just left another state and she was trying to convince everybody that they should go into technology, no longer be miners. And these guys in West Virginia, they didn't want to hear about it. They wanted to remember that scene around the table? And they talked to this beautiful, big, strong miner, and they wanted him to make computer chips. She said, "We'll teach him how to make computer chips." His hands were so large he couldn't hold a computer chip. He's looking at it. He had fingers that were like 3 inches around, and they're talking about making a computer chip. And he didn't like it, and he ended up being one of our best ads ever. She wasn't, and she did rather poorly. She lost I think she lost by 77 points or something like that. Pretty tough to go you knock coal, and then you go 2 weeks later to West Virginia to try and win the state. It didn't work out well for her. But the miners love us. What do you think we got with the coal miners? Would you say we got 90%, 100%? What do you think we were on this?
Pretty high.
Yeah, pretty
Probably
high.
higher than any group in the country.
Pretty high. Yeah, it can't be bad. Well, we did well with all the groups. I'll tell you, the group that now likes us are the auto workers, because we're building more auto plants now than at any time in the history of our country. So it's great to watch and see what's going on with the U.S. We're the most respected country anywhere in the world, and we were a dead country a year and a half. We were a dead country. We were laughed at. We were a mocked, laughed at country. Starting this summer, the West Gateway project will break ground, and by summer 2028, over 12 million tons of clean, beautiful coal per year will be shipped to countries all around the world. And this project's been delayed over 10 years, and Biden ended it, and then Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? Barack Hussein Obama, another one. He's another beauty. But that delay is now over, and it's going to be very productive. It's going to fuel our electric plants in particular. It's going to be amazing. Finally, we're taking nearly $200 million in that to set aside for the Green New Scam, and it was set aside for the Green New Scam, but the Green New Scam is history, and repurposing that money so that we restart a coal plant in Maryland and help build 2 brand new coal plants in Alaska and West Virginia. And these are all built with new technology. It's very clean. It's amazing how that's come along. It's all very clean. And the first new coal plants to open in our country since 2013. You couldn't open, you couldn't even think. They were only closing them. They were closing them, and you had brownouts all over the place. But you don't have that anymore, do you notice? Under 4 years of Sleepy Joe Biden and the radical left Democrats in Congress, not a single permit was approved for a new coal mining project, but in over 1 year of our administration, we've already approved 76 permits for clean, beautiful coal. Last year, we prevented 17 gigawatts of coal-powered electricity from going offline, and that's enough power for about 13 million homes. Think of that, 13 million homes at a very low price. It's the lowest price. So now I'd like to ask Secretary Burgum to say a few words, followed by Secretary Wright, Administrator Lee Zeldin, and then Governor Mark Gordon, and whoever else wants to say a few words, including my new friend, my new governor friend. So, Doug, go ahead.
Well, thank you, President Trump. With these announcements today and everything that your administration has accomplished so far since you've taken office, this administration has done more to save, protect, and expand coal in our country than any administration perhaps ever.
Clean, beautiful coal.
Clean, beautiful coal, absolutely, and none.
I'm only kidding.
That's okay. When you took office, the first thing you did was declare an energy emergency. Some people questioned that, but the prior administration under Biden had gone so far down the path of pursuing the highly subsidized, intermittent, weather-dependent sources of electricity that our grid was at risk. You understood that, and you understood that how key coal is. It's the backbone of having affordable, reliable, and secure American energy to power our country, power our electric grid, power our competitiveness in AI, and power all the manufacturing that's coming back. As you mentioned, with those record coal leases, this is where we take federal public land, lease it to the private sector. They write a check, that comes into the Treasury. They create jobs, help support local communities. So there was 0 coal leases held in 4 years under the Biden administration. You heard the president talk about 76 here. We've slashed red tape. Those took years to get. Some of these projects for coal mining we've approved in less than 1 month under the emergency procedures. And we also have opened up for leasing another 13.1 million acres that people can bid on in our country on public land. And this is land that was set aside. This is not national parks. It's not wilderness area. It's not our wildlife refuges. This is public land that was set aside for the benefit and use of the American people, including energy development and making sure that we've got affordable, reliable energy. So using those public lands is what we're doing. And then the last thing within Interior, I would say we did strategically designate through the U.S. Geologic Survey, which is part of Interior, designate metallurgical coal as a critical mineral. So it's on the list, and that opens up a number of opportunities. But without metallurgical coal, we don't have coke, we don't have the steel industry. The Biden administration was indiscriminate trying to shut down our metallurgical coal as well as our thermal coal. So, and then the last thing you mentioned, the coal export facility, again, working through all the permitting to drive towards that so that we can be selling clean, reliable energy to our allies in the Pacific who want to do more trade with us. And lastly, again, thank you for creating the National Energy Dominance Council. Our Executive Director, Jared Hagan, is here today, but Chris, Lee, and I all have details on that team, and that operates right out of the White House, and that's why President Trump is able to get so much done so quickly. This is the first time ever we had a president with a White House council specifically focused on energy, and what an impact it's having.
Well, and thank you. Perhaps slightly less importantly, but I think very important, the National Garden of American Heroes is going to be unbelievable, and I'd like to know how you're doing on that, and how are you doing on the Great Triumphal Arch. So every city, just about every major city, has a triumphal arch. This is an arch that's a real bow, a beautiful bow to your military and military victories. Nobody's had more military victories, including recently, than we have. And they never got the arch built. It's been, the Civil War stopped it. That circle has been sitting there for a long time, for many, many years. I guess you could go back to, in 1902 they tried it, but in 1860 and 1880 they just never got it done. The Civil War stopped it the first time. That was a good reason. I think that's probably not a bad, that was a good excuse, but after that it just never happened, and we're going to get it done. And so we're doing it with the Department of Interior, and we're also doing the National Garden of American Heroes, which is phenomenal. And we're doing something that just came up. We'll have a little breaking news here because nobody's heard of it, but at the Lincoln Memorial, the front was supposed to be the back was supposed to be the front. It never got built because they built two roadways behind it after it was built, and it shut off the gateway to the water. That was really going to be the main entry, and we're going to be doing that. It's called the Promenade. It'll be the Promenade. They want to call it the Trump Promenade, but I don't know if I want to do that. But it's going to be beautiful. It's a beautiful project, and it's going to take the Lincoln Memorial right down to the Potomac, which it was always scheduled to do, but when they built the roads, that was the end of that. But we have a way of beautifully going over those two roads, highways, very, very strong, very important roads, actually, as you know, from the bridge. But it's going to be great. So could I ask Doug for just a couple of seconds to talk about those three great projects that we're just starting?
Well, I'd say that it's important for everyone to know that, as you described, these are plans and ideas that have existed almost since the end of the Civil War. But the McMillan Plan, which is the one that designed the National Mall as we see it today, that was in the early part of the 1900s, envisioned this connection, that you would have the memorial bridge between the Lincoln Memorial and Arlington Cemetery. At the halfway point, there's a very large circle. It was designed to hold a monument. The arc that would go there is a fantastic complement and completion of this plan that's over 120 years ago, President Trump's vision of how to build that. And of course, President Trump has talked to President Macron from France. More people visit the Arc de Triomphe than even visit the Eiffel Tower. I mean, this would be a highlight for Americans to come. The views back at the city from the top of the arch would be amazing. The views from this side, from West Potomac, where the National Garden of Heroes was, looking across at the arch would be amazing. And of course, the promenade on the backside of the Lincoln is, as President Trump described, right now there's no pedestrian access. You're on the mall, people come from around the world. They don't know that 100 yards away is the beautiful Potomac River, which was part of the original plan. And now they'd be able to walk around the Lincoln Memorial, walk on a pedestrian bridge over the first highway, walk over the next one, and right down to the water. It would complete the vision. These projects would complete the original vision, the McMillan Plan. And how fortunate are we to have the builder-in-chief, someone someone who both has the vision and the understanding of how to get projects done that would, again, make our city safe and beautiful, just like the executive order President Trump put out last year has accomplished. And wow, we are ready for the celebration of our 250th anniversary. The city's never been safer, it's never been more beautiful, but President Trump's not stopping there. Vision that he has for these projects would extend for generations forward. So thank you, President Trump.
Thank you very much. Great job. And Secretary Chris Wright, please.
Yeah. But no coal, no modern world. Stated another way, without clean, beautiful coal, a modern world is impossible. And we saw 17 years ago, President Obama's election, an all-out attack on the American coal industry, the industry that built our nation. We wouldn't have the buildings, the factories, the industry, the electricity grid we have today without the critical contribution of coal. It's been the largest source of global electricity for 125 years in a row and will be for decades to come. In the United States, it remains a critical source of our electricity, also a critical source for our industry. Can't produce steel and cement and other materials without coal. And beyond the impacts of coal in our electricity sector, just think of the direct impact on human lives. If President Trump had not been elected and inaugurated in January of 2025, and through his authority at the DOE, we were able to force keeping open 6 coal plants. As of today, there'll be a 7th one, and more than twice as many that voluntarily said, hey, if we're not going to have to close, we need to stay open. 17 coal plants were not closed in 2025 because of President Trump sitting at this desk and in this position right here. That saved 17 gigawatts of electric generating capacity, and the winter storm Fern that hit our country in the last week of January this year, conservatively, hundreds of Americans would have lost their lives if those 17 coal plants had closed. We pushed the East Coast electricity grid in the United States absolutely to the limit. A storm Uri hit 5 years ago in Texas, smaller in geographic extent, not the same magnitude. Over 300 people died. But because we had those coal plants operating and running, and not only did they run, wind power disappeared when the storm hit. Solar is irrelevant in the winter, so the things we talk about didn't even matter to our electricity grid except for cost burdens. Coal stepped up and produced 25% more electricity during this storm than its normal, reliable chugging out of electricity. Without those plants, without that increase in electricity production, we lost a lot of Americans, untold economic damage. President Trump is the president with the courage and the boldness to defend an industry that has been maligned for far too long and to recognize its importance. Americans are upset about high electricity prices. Blame closing existing reliable, secure plants and replacing them with subsidized, unreliable plants, a guaranteed way to drive electricity prices up. But this administration is committed to reversing all of that. That money we've talked about from the Defense Production Act, thankfully, because of the One Big Beautiful Bill and these fantastic congressmen sitting around me and governors, without that legislation, we wouldn't have the money and the Defense Production Act authority to keep open so many plants. It is hard to overstate the magnitude of this. If you look at our efforts across the whole government so far, 45 coal plants are open today that would not be open. Where would we be to reindustrialize America? Where would electricity prices be if we had let all of those plants close? But we're not doing it. All of those plants, that's $700 million of government funding, but it's matched with $1.7 billion of private investment from the owners and operators of those plants. All the people in those states that say, phew, we don't have to kick our industry out and raise electricity prices again. Common sense is returning to Washington, D.C. And for that, I'm incredibly thankful to be here in the United States government, to work for President Trump, who will stand up for what's right, bring common sense back, and reinvigorate an industry without which we would not have the America we have today. And we're going to reindustrialize America, win in the next generation of technologies, and we're going to do it in critical part because of a growing and thriving coal industry. Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Burgum. Thank you, Lee Zeldin.
Good. And Lee Zeldin, how about saying a few words?
For so many Americans, clean, beautiful coal is their source of heat, of energy, of warmth, of a job, an economy, a community, a family. And for too long, you saw Democrats who were telling these coal miners that they should just learn the code. And what we saw during the Biden administration at the EPA, for example, was regulation after regulation after regulation trying to strangulate out of existence coal, to destroy it. Enter President Trump. Declares a national energy emergency, creates a National Energy Dominance Council, and he told us at the EPA at Trump's speed to be getting rid of these regulations as quickly as possible on behalf of those Americans who want to just stay warm, who want to live the American dream, who want to have affordable access to energy. The Democrats were running for power to sit at this desk and to leverage that power to destroy these communities. Enter President Trump. He has saved clean, beautiful coal, and it's been an honor to be part of it.
Thank you, Lee. Great job, too. Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon. Thank you.
Mr. President, it's an honor to be here. Thank you to the secretaries who have breathed life into an economy in Wyoming that has been there for a long time. Wyoming produces the cleanest, most beautiful coal, low sulfur coal.
You don't mind if I push him, right?
And it's fun because we have a chance to educate our kids. Now, let me just talk a little bit about the other side of this. When a kid grows up in Wyoming, their education's paid for in large part by the coal severance taxes, by the royalties that come from mining that coal that was shut down by the Democrats. When they have a chance to get a job, they can go look to the coal mine. And it's not just digging coal the way we used to, it's high-tech jobs. You know, at this point, we don't mine coal the way we used to at all. It is very, very technologically proficient. And what's more important, it's environmentally sound. I would invite you to come and look at the reclamation that's happened in the Powder River Basin, and we can demonstrate that it's environmentally sound, that actually wildlife populations thrive and do better. Today, Mr. President, I really want to talk to you a little bit about our recent trip to Japan and to Taiwan. Both countries that were going to forswear coal. And now they realize that they need that reliable, dispatchable, secure source of energy. But they can't get it as clean as they can from the Powder River Basin. So to be able to open that Oakland port is absolutely essential for the lifeblood of our state and for our coal mines. It is something that we tried to do in your first administration, and we almost got there. We actually were prepared to go through that, I guess, belt that we have on the West Coast with California, Oregon, and Washington, and finally enforce the Commerce Clause to allow states like New Mexico, Wyoming, Utah, to have access to that Asian market. And let me just tell you one last thing about that. It's not just about clean, beautiful coal. We have companies like Peabody that are now saying, we believe we can get rare earth minerals and critical minerals from what we're doing. So we are advancing technology, advancing the opportunities and the security of the state, all because of your vision, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark, very much. Would you like to say something on behalf of West Virginia?
I would. I would like to
love
say,
that place.
Mr. President, all West Virginians are so deeply grateful to you for your focus on protecting their energy jobs. The coal miners know the incredible importance of why we're here today, and to talk about the potential for new coal-fired power plants, that excites them. And I think West Virginians are really inspired because we're America's energy state. When you think about what's happening on the global scene, where that fight, that international fight with China for information technology supremacy, we believe that your policies are going to allow America to compete and win, and West Virginia is going to supply the coal, the gas, the nuclear to help make that happen. So I'm very excited by everything you're doing, even some of the relatively small things when you come in and you sign agreements with your administration, putting hundreds of people back to work. It's all making a big difference for West Virginia. So thank you, Mr. President.
like, as an example, the Gulf of Mexico into the Gulf of America. It bothered me for many years. We have 92% of the frontage, and we made that little change. And Mexico was thrilled. They were thrilled about it. But that was a good one, right? You were telling me before that was a good one. It's about the United States now for a little while, if it's okay. Would you have any questions, please?
Yes, President Trump, this was just crossing as we were heading in here. President Zelensky wrote a letter to President Putin. He wants the two of them to meet to hash out the end of the war in Ukraine because he thinks you are too busy with the war in Iran. Is he right?
Well, I don't know. I'm glad that they're maybe talking about meeting. I think we had a lot to do with it. I know exactly what you're doing. But I think it would be great if they met. They should get it done.
Mr. President, there's been a lot of talk lately about the Treasury putting your face on a $250 bill. Have you seen a mock-up of the Trump $250 bill? And if that winds up being currency, would you ever be able to tip anyone anything but that?
Well, I think I'd probably leave it for everybody. I have actually seen something just about 2 days ago. I know it's been pushed by a lot of our supporters, and I'm honored that they're doing it, but we'll see how that all works out. But I have heard about it, and there is a group of people, they really like the job we're doing, so that's a great honor. Yeah, please.
You announced just a few days ago that you're naming Bill Pulte as the acting director of national intelligence. There's been a little bit of a pushback from some Senate Republicans. Why do you think, Mr. President, he's the best person for the job?
Well, he's very smart. He's a person who's got high integrity. He's done a phenomenal job at Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. You probably have $1 trillion in value there. When he took over, it was much less.
Alrighty, I understand the time is now 2:59 and we usually jump off the air at 3 p.m. We will stay on a little bit longer just so we are able to hear President Trump answer some of these questions. Just wanted to note that really quickly. Let's go back to listen into the Oval Office.
I mean, think of it. It's probably worth $1 trillion. And I was offered, people want me to sell it at $100 billion, a very small percentage of what it's worth now. So, and he built it up a lot, did a great job. And it's an acting position. It's not a permanent. He's not going to be permanent because, I don't think he'd want to be permanent. But he's a very smart guy, and he may find out some things about the rigged elections, et cetera, et cetera. I think he'd like to do it. I think he wants to do it very much. Got a lot of energy. But he'll be very good. Again, it's not a permanent position. Right. We're interviewing people right now, but it's somebody just to take it over for a little while.
Does he have the necessary, in your view, Mr. President, the necessary national security experience to take on that position?
Well, I do, and I think he does, actually, because he's smart. Because a lot of national security, I wasn't greatly experienced in national security, and I think I've done a really great job with it. A lot of people would say that I've ended 8 wars, and soon to be a 9th. I hope that works out, too, Frankly, probably, and there's another one also. It could be 10. No president, I don't think a president's ended 1 war having to do with outside of this country. So, we've done a good job. I would say that Bill is a guy that will be able to figure it out very quickly. Again, it's short term, but he may be very effective for a short period of time.
Mr. President, so will there be a proportional share increase of electricity production as a percentage of our nation's electricity output? And my follow-up is, I took that historic trip with Secretary Wright of the small modular nuclear reactor on the West Coast early this year. Are we making more progress? Because I know how critical gas and coal is for the secure grid.
Well, the answer is we are, but Chris, you want to answer that?
Yes, I mean, our electricity grid essentially runs on gas, coal, and nuclear. Those are the 3 key sources of the American electricity grid. We're in favor of seeing all 3 of them grow. You will see all 3 of them grow during this administration. And in fact, later today, before the sun goes down, you'll see a big announcement in the nuclear space related to the trip you came on.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. President, President Putin said today that he was willing to make compromises that you requested to end the war with Ukraine if Ukraine was willing to make similar compromises.
Yeah.
What were the
When that happens, it's going to happen. They're going to both make compromises. I suggested those compromises. And, you know, we've had a lot to do with it. We'd love to see they're two very good people. They're two very, incredible countries, beautiful countries. They've got us up. Last month they had 25,000 people killed. Soldiers, mostly soldiers. Some people, but mostly soldiers. And it's been averaging probably almost 25,000 people every month of soldiers killed. And I've been very strong on the fact that they've got to get that over with. So, but they do. I want them each to make certain compromises. I think they're going to do that. Yeah, Daniel?
Mr. President, thank you. You, through your actions, have saved and supported more than 100 coal plants in your second term. When you hear something like that and you try to create an environment where they're not just surviving, they're thriving, what does that do to the reliability of our energy grid, but to the economies as well of states like Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Wyoming? How does it bolster those economies?
Well, we were destroying our grid because we were relying on wind and other things that don't have the power, they don't have the strength, they're very expensive. Wind is the most expensive form of energy. It sounds good, wind, beautiful wind, but it's very intermittent. But those windmills cost a fortune. They break, they kill the birds, they're bad for the environment. Nobody wants to be near them. The houses, I don't know how they got popular. They're not popular with the people. They're popular with investors because they get subsidy. But we pretty much cut that subsidy out, I think, Doug, right?
Absolutely. In the working families tax cut bill, it all expires, and since the subsidies have gone away, there's virtually no one, particularly offshore, no one is trying to build one of those projects in America. Turns out they weren't trying to generate electricity, they were just trying to generate tax credits.
You're supposed to be making money with energy. And here, wind, it needs subsidy. Energy shouldn't need subsidy. We have so many different forms of energy, but I've talked about it for years. Wind is the most expensive, it's the worst. It causes tremendous problems, and it does. It kills millions and millions of birds a year. Nobody mentions that. You'd think if that were anything else, everybody would be sued. If you kill a bald eagle, they put you in jail for like 4 years or something, and yet windmills knock them out of the air all the time. Nothing happens. It's disgraceful. So we're into energy that really works and works powerfully. Yes, go ahead.
And we're waiting outside to come into the Oval Office. Everyone's looking at the UFC structure, the claw. Are you happy with how that's coming along, and what are your expectations?
We put it up in 5 days. It's incredible. And I told yesterday the story of the Eiffel Tower, and it was 1889. It was put up. It was going to be brought down right after the World's Fair ended, which was up for a short while. And they said, well, let's leave it a little bit longer. Then they said, let's leave it a little longer. It never came down. That was 1889, the World's Fair in Paris. So I jokingly said, let me tell you a story about the Eiffel Tower. Now, it'll come down after the fight. There were actually some people who said, he wants to leave it up. Yes, please.
Mr. President, about the Columbus statue, Columbus Fountain at Union Station, it looks amazing.
Thank you.
And what does that mean for the relations between Italy and the United States?
Well, it means Italian people love Trump. And because, that was controversial. People want to rip it down. You see how beautiful it is. And we didn't only not rip it down, but Doug and his group and all of us together, we beautified it. It's I didn't know that marble was going to be so beautiful once we cleaned it up. You wouldn't believe it when you saw that thing was loaded for 50 years with filth and graffiti and everything else. It's amazing. It's amazing how good they did. A really great job.
On the Strait of Hormuz, Mr. President, do you still want European allies' help? We're discussing energy today. And
well, we don't need the help.
What kind of help would you want?
We're the most powerful military in the world. We gave them a chance to help, but they chose not to. NATO. We went to the NATO countries. We went to others too, in all fairness to NATO. And I wouldn't say I gave them a hard sell. I said, hey, if you'd like to help, it'll be wonderful. And they all turned us down. And, it's going to be an expensive proposition for them because they shouldn't have done that. They should have helped. We don't need it. We have our own. We have much more than we need in terms of oil and energy generally. But European countries and other countries, they need it tremendous. Some of the European countries need it really big. And they should have said, we'd love to help. But
if you could choose, Mr. President, if you could choose, what would you ask them to do, sir? if you want.
Well, I would have asked them. I mean, there's not much. Look, I would have asked them. I mean, there's not much. Look, we won. They had. There's no Navy. There's no Air Force. We've wiped them out. We've wiped out their leadership and almost all of it. We've wiped out all their military leaders. They're down on the third. Now maybe they're very good. I don't know. I can't tell you that, but certainly the first ones didn't do very good because they weren't. They were literally, after 3 days, almost the entire military was wiped out. They had to get new generals. And then after that, they had to get more new generals. And we knocked out their anti-aircraft, their Air Force, just about everything you can knock out. So, and then you'd read in the fake news that they're doing really well in the war. I mean, it's unbelievable. We knocked out everything there is to knock out, and you'd pick up the fake news and they'd say how well they've done. They're doing brilliantly. They have no Air Force. You know, they had exactly, we knew that, 159 ships. Andy, out of 159 ships, all 159 lie beautifully at the bottom of the ocean. We actually took pictures of them down there. And then you read the fake news, they say, well, their Navy is really great. You know what they have now? Little runabouts with a machine gun on the front. The ships don't even really deal with them. They're like a gnat, you know, they get off. That's all they have. It's crazy. You know, this country needs a fair press. And one thing I think that's done is expose how corrupt our media is. And I really do, while we're here, I hope the media looks at this election that's taking place in California, where they think it'll take 7 or 8 days to count the votes. Can you believe this? I mean, they spend all that money on the machines, the big voting machines. They think it's going to be 7 or 8 days before we know who won the election. But the numbers are looking strange because without any vote counting, the numbers dropped very precipitously for 2 Republicans that are doing well, that had been doing well. And I hope you're all watching it because I'm watching it very closely.
Mr. President, are you worried that China is funding an anti-data center movement here in the
No,
US?
I'm not worried about it. We had a great meeting with China. And, you know, they do things to us and we do things to them. I say it all the time. They say, oh, are you worried about China tapping your phones? I said, well, you know, they're worried about the same thing. No, we're very highly sophisticated. We've become very highly sophisticated. We had 4 years. I rebuilt the military. We had a military that was not good, and we rebuilt it. And I didn't know I'd use it quite as much, but we used it. Ukraine has been given a tremendous amount of our without our military and our equipment. Ukraine wouldn't be alive to fight today. You know, I mean, just in terms of the question, we gave them hundreds of billions of dollars worth of equipment, and the best equipment. We make the best equipment anywhere in the world. But they wouldn't have lasted 1 or 2 days. They wouldn't have been able to do it. Remember the anti-tank missiles? Remember that, right? When the tanks got stuck in the mud, and then they went around and boom, 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 and those were given by yours truly. They said Obama gave sheets and Trump gave the anti-tank as one of the most devastating weapons, but. You check that out. But we have the greatest military. We have the greatest military equipment anybody's ever seen before. Look at Venezuela. We went in there. It was over after about 48 minutes. And, you know, they have a strong military, different kind of a military, but a lot of soldiers. And you look at Iran, where we essentially wiped out their military. Now, there's some missiles left, but very few compared to what they had.
And speaking of our military and Iran, I wanted to ask you about this report that you would only restart the conflict with Iran if they killed U.S. troops. Is that your red line for ending the ceasefire?
If they killed?
U.S. troops.
What does that mean?
That you would restart the war with Iran if they killed U.S. troops.
Well, it would be a good reason. I'll be honest with you. If they killed U.S. troops, I think I would do that very quickly. Yeah, that's a very interesting question.
Iran, you responded to the vote in the House yesterday on the War Powers Resolution. Also, we've seen Hezbollah reject the U.S. brokered peace in Lebanon. You said that negotiations are in final stages, but Iran's saying they're stalled.
They didn't reject me. They didn't reject that. They're looking. I think Hezbollah, I will tell you, they called us and they said, how about stopping? And I think you're going to see things happen over there. That's been like a little bit of a different world, but it's interconnected with Iran. And it would be really nice if Lebanon could have some peace. Lebanon's been under attack for so many years and always like an underdog. And it would be really nice if it could end. And I spoke to Bibi Netanyahu about that. And I speak to them about it. And I actually spoke to Hezbollah about it. And I think progress is made. That's been going on for a long time. You know, when you look at that for years and years, 48 years, I say, well, let's get this settled. How long has it been going on? 48 years. I said, that's a long time. Not that easy, but go ahead.
As we get closer to the midterms, are you starting to factor in domestic reaction to this in your handling of this? Or are you
I just do what's right.
Indefinitely?
No, I mean, look, it was like Venezuela. It was very unpopular. Then we won, and my numbers went through the roof. I have very high poll numbers. They went through the roof. It was very unpopular when I went to Venezuela. They said, oh, we don't want... Well, first of all, that one's relatively close. It's sort of a semi-neighbor, right? And the relationship with Venezuela is incredible. We've taken out millions and millions of barrels of oil out of Venezuela. It's very oil prone. I guess, Chris, one of the most, right?
Yes.
And we've taken out, you're sort of leading it, but do you want to just tell them real fast about the relationship we have with Venezuela, Chris?
Yeah, things with Venezuela have gone very well. Venezuelan oil exports today are 3 times higher than they were right before we went in. So it has been a meaningful incremental supply of oil to the world. And one of the reasons we're solving a 47-year-old problem of Iran's race for nuclear weapons and oil prices in the U.S., we wish they were lower. But gasoline prices in the U.S. are, a little over $4. They're $10 in Europe. They're higher in Asia. They're very high in California. The bigger threat to energy prices in the United States is Democratic green energy policies. They have driven up energy prices far more than a conflict in Iran. And the conflict in Iran will come to an end. We hope that crazy green energy, drive up energy prices policy of the Democrats at federal and state levels, we hope that comes to an end too.
And remember this, if you want to call it a war or if you want to call it a military operation, you cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And everybody agrees to that, almost everybody. But wait a minute, our gasoline prices are lower than they were with Biden without that. And he would have let them have, in fact, he inspired them to have, frankly, a nuclear weapon, him and Obama. Obama picked the wrong country, you know that. And the Obama deal, I terminated that, or they would have had a nuclear weapon. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. Our deal, if we make that deal, and it's going well, but who knows, if we make that deal, it's the exact opposite. They will never have a nuclear weapon.
It sounds like you're in it for as long as it takes.
I'm not going to let them have a nuclear weapon, no. With Obama, it was a road, you know that, it was a road to a nuclear weapon. That was a short-term agreement, and at the end of which they would have a nuclear weapon. So they would have had it 4 years ago. Then we attacked with this beautiful plane right here, the B-2 bomber. We attacked 10 months ago, we attacked their nuclear sites, and they were obliterated. It turned out that, CNN was wrong. They said, well, maybe they weren't hit that hard. They were hit so hard, nobody knows if you can even get it out. But the only ones that have the capability of getting out is us in China. We're the only ones with that kind of equipment that's powerful enough to go down that deep into a mountain. But that mountain crushed it. That mountain literally collapsed on top of it. Those pilots did one hell of a job. And now the atomic energy, as you know, has backed us up on that. They think it's a very, very hard thing to get it. But we'll get it anyway. But we're the only one, and China. I believe China too. But we're the only two that have the capability.
Joe Biden is out promoting a new book this week. When you met with Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, right here in the Oval Office on November the 13th of 2024, could you detect any cognitive decline in President Biden at that time?
No, not really. I mean, he was the same guy I've been watching for a long time. I mean, you could go back 40 years. I watched him 40 years ago, 30 years ago. He was never the sharpest guy. You do know that, right? It wasn't like he was sharp as a tack. But, no, it was the same guy. They actually invited me here before the election, which was strange. We went here before, but then I met also, as you know, we did the ritual. And, I mean, he was fine as far as I was concerned. I don't know, something happened to him during the debate. It could have been me. You know, I thought I had a very good debate. Nobody ever says that. They say that Biden did badly. What about me? Did I do well? You know, there's a reason he did badly. So the question is, did he do badly because he choked or because he didn't have it? But he didn't have a good, I would say this, he did not have a good night.
But during that time period, you met with him for about 2 hours. You didn't feel he was
No, he spoke softly, very softly. And as we started to speak, I mentioned this to people. We spoke very, very softly, very low. And as we talked, we got along really well. And I thought he was fine. When I say fine, I mean, was he like talking to Doug Burgum? Was he like talking to Chris? Was he like talking to any of these monsters up here, all these tremendous politicians and environmental geniuses? Was he like talking to Andy Barr? No. He was fine.
I have a question about Hunter Biden. He's on social media now, and he has suggested, maybe joking, I don't know, that he could run for president in 2028. How would he do, Hunter Biden, in a 2028 Democratic primary?
Well, you would think that, past has something to do with winning an election, and I would say his past is not the greatest. Where's Hunter? Remember my Where's Hunter? It became the #1 shirt anywhere in the world for about 3 weeks. I'm not going to say bad. I'm sure, hey, if the guy from Maine can do well, I guess Hunter could do well too, because the guy from Maine is a basket case. And I would say worse than him is the one from Texas. That looks like Alfred E. Newman. I would say that if he can do well, maybe Hunter can do well. I'm not sure. It'll be pretty close as far as I'm concerned.
And I've got a question about the nuclear dust. So the bombers go in, they entomb a lot of this enriched uranium.
Yeah.
At this point, do you need a deal with Iran to go get it? Or have you thought about just a covert, daring, send in the SEALs, send in the Rangers?
But I didn't want to be Jimmy Carter, I didn't feel like being Jimmy Carter.
So that's off the table.
We did. Well, we thought about it right at the very beginning, before we did what we did, before we destroyed their entire military. We thought about it, and I didn't want to be in a position where you had, to get there. It's not like Venezuela. Like you go in, you're there for a matter of minutes, and you're out, and everybody's waving goodbye as you take off, and you brought the cargo back. This is different. You'd have to be there for 2 weeks. You'd need massive equipment. You'd have to airlift the equipment in. You're in a war zone. And there was a time at the very beginning when we thought about doing that, because they would have not been watching, but they would have found out. I mean, during a period of a week to 2 weeks, you would have had a major construction operation, because that plane, and more importantly, those people that operate those planes, including the mechanics, that flew for 37 hours round trip. Think of that. And the tankers that refilled them 4 times, and what an operation it was. Amazing. And but we would have been, Peter, we would have been there for a period of from a week to 2 weeks. We would have gotten it. But I said, I don't like the idea of that. All of a sudden they, pinpoint, they still had missiles left. That means they would pinpoint you and just keep lobbing them in until one gets through, and people would have gotten killed. So I didn't like it. We could get it right now. I don't think they could stop us if we wanted, but there's no reason to. It's entombed. You use a good word. It's entombed. We also have cameras on it through Space Force. We have very powerful cameras. Every door, there's a door, you know where the doors go? They go to bad places. But every single place on those mountains is basically three, because we also hit it with tomahawks after. After that we hit it with tomahawk. Every inch of that land has cameras on it. We have about 9 of them, and they're on it. We cover it. So if anybody even got near it, we would know what we had to do.
And we've heard that you want to meet with the new Ayatollah, the new supreme leader.
I don't want to meet, but if I did meet, I'd be honored to meet him. I'd like to see if we make a deal. But if we make a deal, it's possible that I would meet him. I'd be okay with
Would
it.
that happen here in the U.S., White House?
Oh, I don't know,
Camp
Peter.
David?
I haven't really heard too much about it. I didn't suggest it, but some people have suggested it. If it happened, it would be happen. I'd be respectful.
Do you think because Epic Fury killed his dad and his wife and his kid that he's got hard feelings and wouldn't want to meet?
Well, I would say I'm not his favorite person, but with that being said, he's probably I don't know. He's probably a professional. In some circles, he has a very good reputation. Actually, sometimes some people say bad, but a lot of people say bad about me. It's totally false, of course.
Mr. President, on jobs, tomorrow the jobs report will be released. While the unemployment rate has been steady at 4.3%, the black unemployment rate has been 7.3%. When you ran for president, you courted black voters and talked about what you described as black jobs. How do you describe why this disparity is happening? What can you do to close that?
Well, we're doing very well with the black jobs, African American jobs. I saw some numbers that we're doing really well. But where we're really going to do well is when all these plants are open. We're building many car plants. We're bringing cars back from Germany. We're bringing, we lost the car industry years ago. 54% of the industry went to Germany, Japan, Canada, Mexico. It's all coming back. It's amazing. And where your black worker is really going to do well is when those factories open. So I think they're going to be great. We've been doing very well. It's been a big focus for me. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. On today's announcement, how do you ensure the estimated cost savings are passed on to the consumers and not held by the company? And then on Iran, what specific progress has been made today in talks with them, and where are the sticking points still?
So we're really lowering costs. When I came into this job, we had the highest inflation in the history of our country. 48 years, they say, but I think the history of our country, whether it's 48 years or more. But we had tremendous inflation with Biden, during the Biden. They had one of the highest ever. And I inherited that. The costs were very, very high. And at my first news conference, Peter and others were screaming at me about eggs. Remember, Peter? Eggs. What about eggs? Maybe it wasn't you, but I wanted to inject Peter into it. But he was screaming to me about eggs. And I said, what? Tell me about eggs. This is 2 days in. They said eggs had quadrupled. I said, well, they didn't quadruple under me. And they didn't want me to order eggs for the Easter egg hunt that was going to take place in a few months, right? And I said, nope, we're not going to. They wanted me to order plastic eggs. And I said, nope. And we got eggs down to lower than what it was long prior to when I took over. And eggs today are about 15% lower. What we had is a bunch of con artists.
Alrighty, you've been listening to President Trump for a little over an hour now as he has been taking questions from the press. Not only that, he made a $700 million or an announcement that he would invest $700 million into coal plants, okay? We are going to wrap up our coverage here as you're taking now a live look from the outside of the White House. It's been a pleasure to be with you throughout the last little bit here as we've watched the president make these announcements. Reminder, you can join us tomorrow, 2 p.m. We'll have all of the news you need to know and so much more, as we always do. That is, again, coming up tomorrow, 2 p.m. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. We will see you then.